What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. And in today's video, we are back with the first injury report of the week for the Lions and the Bears divisional matchup. One of the most important games of the season for the Lions and also for the Bears. Plus, we have some news that I thought we would sprinkle in today with the Bears quarterback situation, injury reserve, Anthony Lynn to USC. There's a lot going on, so let's get it started.
We're going to bite a kneecap off, and we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap, and we're going to get up, and then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down. And when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Welcome everybody to the video. Glad you guys are here. And I'm excited to be back because it is officially Chicago week, man. We are moving on. It's Bears week. Ravens game is in the past. And I think this is one of the most important games. I've said it once and I'll say it again. This 3-game stretch, maybe the next 2 in particular, but this 3-game stretch that the Lions have before this Rams game, I think will ultimately decide how this season goes for the Detroit Lions. They got a chance to make up a lot of ground. The Bears are trying to do the same thing after a tough loss to Cleveland, and coming off that loss that we had to a team like Baltimore, which just, I mean, we had it, but we're moving on. How do we respond will tell a lot about this team for this season, and we've seen that in the past. The way that this team responds to a tough, heartbreaking loss does speak a lot. And Dan Campbell said his guys are ready. He can see it in their eyes. The Lions released Jamie Collins yesterday, so there's no longer that, what do we do with Collins? Can we find a trade? It's gone. There's any distractions. We're moving forward. So we'll see how this goes. But we do have the injury report. So we're going to start there, and we'll sprinkle in some news as we go through it. But let's start off with the Chicago Bears first, all right? The home team in this game. We're going on the road. Let's start off with the Bears. Let's throw their injury report on the screen right now. Bottom left, that is their injury reserve. And it is much smaller than ours. It's way smaller than Baltimore's. We have like 14 guys on there. Plus, today, there is word that one of those guys are coming off, and that is Danny Trevathan, who has been taken off of injury reserve. However, when you look at the Bears, that is one guy that is coming off. This is one of their top linebackers. So far, it's been Alec Ogletree, and it's been Roquan Smith, who have been holding it down at the linebacker position without Danny Trevathan. And I'm not saying he's going to play this week, but I am saying he's starting the process to coming back to playing. So that's very good for him. I guess he was dealing with some kind of knee soreness that they didn't think was super serious, but then he got placed on IR. 3-week IR. So it doesn't mean you have to come back. It just means you're eligible to come back. And Danny Trevathan is on his way to coming back. They also have Tevin Jenkins on there, the offensive tackle, the rookie for this season. There's been no update there. There's been no update with the other offensive tackle, Borum. There has been some questions with the depth of the inside linebacker position once Danny Trevathan does return for guys like Christian Jones, who isn't getting a ton of snaps right now. Alec Ogletree, who is kind of filling in with Roquan Smith. So there's questions there with depth. Another guy that we'll get into is on the injury report. We'll see what movements are made, and we'll see when he returns. But now let's dive into this injury report from today's practice for the Chicago Bears. Again, keep in mind this was the first day of practice, but it should have been a normal practice. Neither team is on a shortened schedule. That doesn't necessarily mean it wasn't maybe a little bit more of a walkthrough, but it should be a normal day for both teams. Starting at the top, we have the vet safety, Tashaun Gibson Sr. We've seen him before with the hamstring injury, no participation. Now, he's missed a little bit of time. He did not play either last week against the Browns, missed Thursday and Friday, out of practice both those days. In his place, backup safety Deon Bush has stepped in with Eddie Jackson. Now, Eddie Jackson didn't play extremely well last week. Deon Bush has some solid statistics when you look there. So he was the backup safety to slide in. We did see a little bit of the other safety, Houston Carson, who came in on dime packages, played a little bit as like a nickel back, played a little bit in some different areas. But Tashaun Gibson is someone that we didn't see last week, and we're not sure if we're going to see him this week. No participation today. Continuing down, Jimmy Graham, the tight end. All right, we all know about Jimmy Graham. Now, we know the Bears, they love their tight ends. All right, they do. They have Cole Kmet. They got Jimmy Graham. They have our former Lion, Jesse James. As you can see, they like their tight ends. But Jimmy Graham, no participation today. But there's no reason to be worried because it was just a rest day for Jimmy Graham. Just a rest for the vet. Rest for the vet. I like it. Continuing down, we have the linebacker's name that I love to mess up because there's no way I'm going to do this right. This is Joel E.A. Buniwe. I'm rocking with that. I'm even going to try again. E.A. Buniwe. I lied. I'm trying it again. E.A. Buniwe. Okay, stop. That is the inside linebacker, Joel, who's one of those backups. We'll see what the snap count goes to, but there's no participation from Joel here, dealing with a hamstring injury as well. One of their depth interior linebackers. This is a player on the final year of his rookie contract, 4th-round pick back in 2018 out of Western Kentucky. So we'll keep an eye on that. But then we're back to the tight ends. And, man, the Bears, they like their former Lions, man. Desmond Trufant was there until he was cut. Rashad Perriman, who, by the way, was inactive last week, is still with the Chicago Bears. They got a guy like Jesse James here, Christian Christian Jones. Jesse James has not played a ton, and now he's listed with personal. I'm not sure what that is. No participation today because of that, so we'll see how that progresses. But he's been kind of like the third tight end behind Jimmy, behind Kmet. He's seen a few snaps, but he hasn't got targeted in the pass game. Khalil Mack, this is, of course, a big one. You know, when you got a guy like Khalil Mack on here, this one's going to get the attention. No participation from Khalil Mack dealing with a foot injury. Now, the good news for Khalil Mack is that he went out last week against the Browns in the first, but came back in the second half. So they did see him return, and today he did not participate. So this could be maybe more of a healing day for Khalil Mack. We'll keep an eye on that. We know that is like, I mean, when you think of the Bears, you're probably thinking of a guy like Khalil Mack. So we'll keep an eye on that name. We know how talented he is. You pair him with the defensive line they have with the Hicks and an Eddie Goldman, who we're going to get to in a second. This front seven's got a lot of talent, specifically on that defensive front. So we'll keep an eye on it, but Khalil Mack's going to be the big name to watch as this week progresses. But again, the good thing is he did return last week. Usually that's a good sign to play. But this is where things get interesting. This is the quarterback position for the Chicago Bears, and there's been a lot of debate. Who's going to play this week? Who is not going to play this week? Who's going to play that spot? After last week, Justin Fields came in because of an injured Andy Dalton, who went out the week before, came back, and then went back out. Fields didn't play that well last week, like at all. He had 6 completions and 9 sacks. That's not a good combination there. Now, Matt Nagy, he has been getting a lot of heat, okay? I bet that dude's seat is on fire. I'm really scrolling through Twitter and just scrolling through the comments from Bears fans on posts, and it's just like, hey, hashtag fire Matt Nagy. Dang, man, these fans, they're not happy. So clearly, he might be a little bit on a hot seat. The quarterback position has been a spot that's gotten a lot of attention really this whole year throughout for Chicago, because this is a big year for Matt Nagy, but it's also because you trade up and you draft a guy like Justin Fields, and you have a guy like Andy Dalton who doesn't get a lot of, national respect. So when you look at the quarterback situation, you have a guy like Andy Dalton who today was limited with a knee injury. But here's what Matt Nagy told us about this quarterback situation today. He said that the depth chart for the quarterback position has not changed, meaning that Andy Dalton is the number one guy. He is the number one quarterback, depending on health for this weekend. So if Andy Dalton's not good enough to play, Justin Fields will be the number 2 up, and Nick Foles will be the number 3. When Dan Campbell was asked about this today, he said he expects to see Andy Dalton as the starting quarterback in this game, and probably a little bit of Justin Fields, maybe even a little bit of Nick Foles. He said we're going to be prepared for whoever they throw out there, but he does expect to see Andy Dalton as their quarterback, and he says he thinks there are a little bit more variation within their offense when there is a guy like Andy Dalton. But obviously there's been a lot of criticism thrown at the way at Matt Nagy. Today we got to hear from Golden Tate on Good Morning Football, who said that he would start Andy Dalton if he was healthy. Personally, watching the game back, and I've only done it once, I haven't really dove into it like that, but Matt Nagy's been getting a lot of the heat for the play calling, and it's definitely deserved. You're playing a team like the Browns, who's got a vicious front 4, Myles Garrett, Clown. I mean, we know about the dudes they got on that line. 4.5 sacks for one guy, that's a problem, especially for a rookie quarterback. You had to start him. Dalton was hurt. He did travel with him. Blame to go around when you have 1 net passing yard. But Matt Nagy, the offensive line, who was getting kind of killed against the Bears, the inability to run the ball on early downs, which continuously got them into 3rd and long situations. The team was 1 for 11 on 3rd downs offensively. And Justin Fields, man, just seemed out of sync with Fields. Plus, when you're in 3rd and long, that pressure against an offensive line that was struggling specifically on the right side, and you have that happening, you're going to get into some trouble. I mean, I'll dive into it this week, but there's definitely been some heat on Matt Nagy for his play calling. He did address that, and he said that he's talked to coaches, but he didn't necessarily say, hey, I'm going to play call this week, or this guy's going to. He just said that he's had conversation with other coaches, which has been good. So I don't know if anything's going to happen there. I don't know if we're going to see a different guy play calling, but I wouldn't expect to see anything crazy different from what they like to do schematically. Dan Campbell did bring up again that there's more variation with this offense with Dalton, and he said that he thought Justin Fields got a little bit more comfortable towards the end when they tried to get him out to the perimeter. But even when they did that, those defensive ends for Cleveland were doing a great job of just keeping him in the pocket, containing him, running him down when he tried to scramble, really jumping on that first read wherever he stared down, making plays on the football. Some inaccurate passes, some goes on play calling, some goes on the O-line, and some goes on the inability to run the ball extremely well on early downs, which puts him in the bad spots. Plus, then he had some flags going on top of it. Overall, it was just ugly. I mean, just leave it there. It was ugly. But either way, I anticipate that as long as Andy Dalton continues to progress, we're going to see Dalton in this game. If not, and he's not progressing, or maybe it gets worse throughout the week, then Justin Fields will be the next guy up. But I think Dalton is probably going to be the starter this week as of right now. My projection, we'll have to wait and see how that goes. Everyone starts. I do like our opportunity here defensively. A lot of fantasy people are betting on the fact, take their receivers because they're going to have a big game here. And they could, but I actually do like our matchup against Justin Fields. You know, I didn't love Fields coming out of draft, so we'll see if that's what we get. When you have a guy, a vet like Andy Dalton, a bit more ready to go, so we'll see where his health is at. But either way, the quarterback position is going to be one of the most entertaining things to watch through for the week. Eddie Goldman, the nose tackle, we know about this stud. Knee injury, limited participation today. Has not played this year, and he was injured on the first day of the first regular season week of practice. So, yeah, he's been dealing with a little bit of something, and they never placed him on IR, probably because they thought he would come back sooner, but that didn't happen. However, good news here is he's now limited. So, I mean, at least, you know, that's something he's practicing. So, we may get to see Eddie Goldman for the first time, which is unfortunate as a Lions fan. Darnell Mooney, the receiver, who only had 1 reception last week, was very quiet, but when you only throw 6 completions, that's going to happen. Should be playing this week. That's what it sounds like. And, of course, Justin Fields, full participation. He was dealing with a right thumb injury where he had x-rays. It came back negative, so he's okay there. Andy Dalton avoided anything super serious like an ACL tear or any MCL injury. We'll see who maybe feels the best or looks the best this week when it comes down to game time. So that'll be something to monitor as this week goes on. Take a look at the Lions side of the injury report. It's much smaller than it was last week, so it looks really good. They got 4 players on this injury report for today, so that's great. But I did add a couple of names to this. So we do have some IR updates, a couple players that are on there, the Deckers, the Deshaun Hands. Plus, you have a guy that's been reinstated in Jayshon Cornell. So let's take a look at the Lions injury report. Let's start off at the top. We have Trey Flowers, who continues to be on this list. He did not practice at all last week. He did not play last week. But the Lions, they waited. They patiently waited to see if he could come back, and he did not play last week. He has been listed with no participation today, still dealing with the shoulder/knee injury. Now, with that in mind, the Detroit Lions defensive ends and outside linebackers last week really played well. A lot of guys got opportunities last week that maybe they didn't get as much of in the past. Charles Harris, a guy that played a lot of snaps opposite of Romeo Okwara, was really good last week. We're talking about a pass rushing specialist, a legit talent coming out of the draft, a former first-round pick. He played really well last week. The guy had 6 pressures on his own. And I think him playing in that, 2-point stance, not having his hand in the dirt, I think it's been working wonders for him in that base defense. And I think we saw some of that last week, just the ability. Then you look at a guy like Julian Okwara. I mean, Julian was really nice. This is the first time we really saw him take a lot of snaps for the Lions ever. Julian Okwara was another guy that got super involved because there was no Trey Flowers. Him and Romeo combining for 10 pressures. Both these guys' PFF grades are through the roof. You're looking at pass rush. So if you want to take a look at that, you can. Either way, the athleticism, the speed, the pass rushing upside, it was shown off by those 2 guys. And heck, even Austin Bryant got into the mix a little bit. And Austin Bryant, we haven't seen a ton from him defensively in the past, aside from run defense. So it's really nice to see these guys starting to come around as pass rushers and getting their opportunity now without a Trey Flowers. Now, Flowers is all reliable. You know what you're going to get out of Trey Flowers. But the thing is that he has missed some time. With Julian, Charles, and an offensive line in Chicago that gave up a lot of pressures last week, specifically on that right side, Ifeidi, who really struggled. I think this is an opportunity for our defensive line, some of these pass rushers, to get after it this week. But the question will be, how do they build on one good week? If there is no Trey Flowers, how do they build on top of that? Do they keep it up? That'll be something that we don't really know. Okay, we know Trey Flowers from week to week can be a steady player. We don't exactly know with some of these young guys or these maybe unproven guys so far. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But Trey Flowers, as we know, he's one of those guys that as long as he can progress through the week, he could probably play this weekend. There's no guarantee that he will, but he probably could if he can progress. But right now, he's starting at no participation. So we'll keep an eye on how that goes. Plus, I think the speed of the Ravens defense was really beneficial for Julian, Charles, just how they wanted to attack it and the kind of players that they wanted to have on the field. So I'm excited for what we have there. The right tackle really struggled. Expecting to see a lot of Romeo Okwara on his side. But across him, Charles Harris, Julian, those guys, Austin Bryant will get into the mix. You have Jason Peters, the 39-year-old vet. And that's not to say that he's bad. I really have to dive into the film of last week. Some people have criticized him. Some people haven't as much. Regardless, they were getting pounded. And a lot of it did start with you had to stop the run first. And that's where it does start. It started with the Browns had to stop the run first to allow this pass rush to get after it. And that's what we had to do against the Ravens too. So it does start with the run defense. And we know Flowers can help us there. Taylor Decker, Deshaun Hand. Both these guys, both eligible to return as it now has been 3 weeks, just like Danny Trevathan. But neither of these guys have technically been taken off of IR. Taylor Decker with no participation was at practice today. He was in street clothes off to the side with a bandage on his right hand where he was injured. So it's not anticipated that he's going to come back this week. Was stretching. Now it's still going to be the Penei Sewell at left tackle, but We'll see how this goes. And we know this is a big week for Sewell because Sewell struggled last week. I mean, this was his worst game. I thought the offensive line as a whole struggled last week against missing some players on the defensive line. So I want to see how our offensive line responds to that. And then, of course, Deshaun Hand. And this is unfortunate for him because, this offseason is like all about staying healthy, doing things the right way, eating right, things to stay healthy, keep himself healthy. And he was excited to be out there. We saw him in the offseason. And then, bam, the groin injury comes up and it hits him. And according to Dan Campbell, he's a ways away, which is super unfortunate. The Lions did keep him on the 53-man roster and place him on IR, so they like the guy. Jashon Cornell is back. Now, I'm assuming he practiced today. I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming he did. He's not on this list. But Cornell has been reinstated by the NFL on Monday. They have until Thursday, which is tomorrow, to find a spot on that 53-man roster for him to bring him back. But the good news is that he's back. And Dan Campbell said, we're happy he's back. He did not guarantee he would be playing on Sunday. But Cornell is not one of the guys they kept around. And Jashon Cornell showed us that pass rush upside from the inside. Oh, my goodness. He can get after it. All that at Ohio State. And we saw it really in the offseason. But then, of course, he was suspended for the first 3 weeks. He has now been reinstated. This is like when a lot of people are coming back. So we'll see if he does play this weekend. But I know I'm excited for Jashon Cornell. This will be the first time that we've seen him in the Lions uniform in the regular season. Ever. He did not play at all last season. Continuing down, Brockers and Romeo continue to be on this with limited participation, both with shoulder injuries. For the last 2 weeks, it's been the same thing. So the good news is they're practicing. Good news is they finished their games. And I'm thinking that's probably good news, even though they're still limited. And to finish it off, you do have a guy named DeAndre Swift, who is dealing with his groin injury still limited participation. It's been like that for the last couple weeks. Same thing with Brockers, same thing with Okwara. But Swifty, man, oh gosh, did he look like himself last week. Swifty looked really, really good. And I thought week 2 we got the flashes. Week 3 it was like, oh snap, this is what he's capable of. And according to Dan Campbell, don't be surprised he's the first running back on the field. So don't get too caught up in who the starters are at the running back spot. But we're going to see more of Swift. The guy's talent level is just through the roof. He's swifty, he's shifty, he's elusive, he's got the pass. I mean, he just brings so much. But man, I love his vision combined with his shiftiness to make guys miss. He just looks like a different player last week than he did in week 1. He looks completely different to me, and I think he's coming back to being healthy, and we're seeing that Swift that we expected to see this season, which is awesome. Good news is some of these players that were on here in the past weeks aren't here anymore, like Khalif Raymond with the thigh. He was on there a couple weeks. He's no longer on here. Julian Okwara with the neck last week. He's no longer on here. Kevin Strong, he's no longer on here. So, yeah, still limited participation with the groin injury. Now, we do have some news outside of the injury report for the Lions, and this is some weird stuff that came up yesterday, but I thought we'd at least talk about it. Anthony Lynn to USC. Okay, wait, what? Yeah, USC, who fired their head coach 2 games into the season, Clay Helton. That's, after they got blown out by Stanford. I remember watching that game. I was like, dang, they're getting really smacked. Struggles that a top quarterback coming into this year, Slovis, was having. So they fired him 2 games into the season. A guy that last year went 5-0, 5-1 because he lost the last game. But either way, they fired him after 2 games. Their interim head coach, Dante Williams, stepped up, and he won his first game against Washington State in blowout fashion. But then this past week, they lost to Oregon State 45-27. So that of course was not good. And USC is continuously looking for coaches. Team that became kind of involved with this, and there's been some split opinions. I think more people are on the side of this would be good for USC. But this is that Anthony Lynn could potentially become their next head coach, as reportedly the boosters from USC has reached out to Anthony Lynn. And the report that we have back is that he would be interested if the team gave him an opportunity to be their head coach and take over. And we know college is much different. He's never been a college head coach. He played at Texas Tech. This would be completely new to him. Some people believe his recruiting would be really good there. Either way, I wouldn't fault the man because this would be a very cool opportunity for him to be a head coach once again, even if it's at the collegiate level. The rumor is that he would be interested. However, the school, as of this very moment, as I'm talking right now, and Anthony Lynn have not been in contact. So just a booster. So we'll see what happens here with Anthony Lynn. I hope we don't lose him. I really, really hope not, because I like Anthony Lynn. Remember, he decided to coach this season after he was going to take a year off because Dan Campbell reached out to him. I hope we don't lose our guy Anthony Lynn. This will be a really tough loss in the beginning of the season where he's putting his system in, the install. We're learning it. The offense is picking it up. I think he's a good coach. I think we've seen adjustments. He tries to play to the team's strengths. Has everything been perfect? No, but we've seen creativity. We saw it on that, pass play that Swift threw back to the quarterback, which would have been wide open, by the way, if it wasn't for Khalif Raymond missing a block to spring that play deep. Someone would have been wide open. That was a cool play call. I liked me some Anthony Lynn, the way he runs the football, the run game background that he has. So I hope we don't lose this guy 4 weeks into the season. That would be very, very tough. So I don't even want to speak that into existence. But if you did ask who would be the next guy up, I don't know. I would guess maybe, I don't think Dan Campbell would take the responsibility of plays. I mean, he could. I was guessing maybe Deuce Staley, because the Lions have Deuce Staley getting those responsibilities to get prepared to be a head coach way down the road. But he's also a running back coach. And if you keep in mind, back in Philly, remember, he denied taking the job to become their offensive coordinator because they said he wouldn't get to call plays. So maybe that would be your next guy up. Either way, I hope we don't lose Anthony Lynn. I know they have a lot of people that they're interested in over there at USC. They're reaching out to a lot of people. But the good news is, as of now, they have not reached out to him to be the coach of that team. We know the Lions' dead cap is getting pretty big, as Matthew Stafford, who has $19 million dead cap, Coleman, Trufant, Collins, who now joins that mix, Chase Daniel, your Christian Jones. There's a lot of dead cap that the Lions have right now, but they were able to do it after the Jamie Collins releasing. So there's a lot of dead cap, but keep in mind, a lot of this is players that were here in the past. This is what happens again. When you change regimes, things like this happen. Some guys, you try to make it work. They try to make it work with Jamie. They try to make it work with a lot of these guys. It just doesn't always work. And in this case, not all of these guys worked out. So they do have a lot of dead cap, but really when you look at the Lions, the guys they brought in that they kind of missed on was Brashad Perriman, Randy Bullock. I mean, those are the only two that really they missed on. Also, protected players for this week for the Lions. Ryan Santoso is one of those because he kicked last week. He was 1 for 1, made the what should have been a game-winning field goal, 2 for 2 on extra points. So we didn't see him a ton, but he also did kickoff responsibilities. And man, that guy's got a boot. So he has been protected this week. There's a chance he does play again this week because Seibert is still on COVID reserve, as we know right now. So if he can't play, the Lions do have Santoso, who is protected on the practice squad. Last week we lost Zane Gonzalez. So it makes sense to protect this guy. Let's have that backup option. And they continue to protect Steven Montez, the quarterback, for a third. They continue to protect Jalen Elliott, the safety out of Notre Dame. Also Bruce Sector, the defensive lineman. So those three have kind of stayed the same, but Ryan has been a new addition. Either way, that is your Lions and Bears News Plus injury report for today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you, Prep, for watching. And if you guys want to take a look at this defense against the Ravens, because we are moving forward, but it is now Bears week. But if you want to take a look back, I did post a video last night. And, of course, go back to my video where I did a preview to that Bears game if you guys do want to get in. I don't want you to miss out. I'm doing a giveaway. Tomorrow is likely when it will be announced for 2 tickets to the Bengals game at home. So make sure you go to that video. Watch. It's at the very end. It's like the last couple minutes. I explain how to get into it. Do that so you can get into it and then possibly win some tickets to the Bengals game. Thank you, Brad, for watching, and I'm out.